I wrote this little typed program to do currency conversions just so other people could follow this in different countries, but probably your governments will change the tax structure a lot, so I don't know how relevant it'll be. But what I pay for rent is $13.75 a month, which is very high for America, and that's because I live in Vermont, which is like one of the most socialist states. We have a bunch of welfare programs for schools and the homeless and stuff, and that comes out of our taxes, mostly state taxes. So that just drives the cost of living way up. $13.75 is my half of the rent, and I have one roommate, so in total it's like $2,700 a month, which is insane for what Burlington is and what like type of apartments they offer you. And then we've got, and on top of that, then this is before utilities, and we pay $500 to $600 a month probably on just utilities and groceries and all that stuff, which we're trying to optimize with Costco and whatever. But yeah, I don't know, that's just a loose estimate. And then what my parents pay for not an apartment, but like our house, which is like a, I don't know, pretty nice house. It's not like crazy. It's just like a standard family house, is like $2,000 a month in mortgage, and then another 15 to 19. I don't know how accurate that is. I asked my parents a while ago, and this is just in property tax, which you can see is like basically the same amount as the mortgage, which is absolutely brutal. And then my other income streams are YouTube typically makes $300 to $500 a month, but this month has been really good just because I had one video blow up, so it's around $1,500 as I'm recording this. But I don't know, it fluctuates all the time. That's not reliable, and it's only like month 4 of doing YouTube, so I don't know what that is. It covered my rent this month, which is absolutely amazing. I never thought that would happen, but I don't know, it's just cool. And then what do I have in the bank right now? About 16 grand between assets and everything. I think most of that is just sitting in a high yield savings account. Also, what do my parents make? My dad's a professor at the university that I was at before I dropped out. And he makes, well, he did make when he first started about 20 years ago, I think, or 15, sorry. I don't exactly, I'm not good with dates. But yeah, at least over a decade he's been here. He's now at like 100K a year, which objectively is pretty good from the scale of things in America. But you know, it's not crazy for an engineering salary at all. The universities are pretty brutal, and a lot of it goes to your insurance and other stuff. And then my mom makes like 15,000. I don't know. My mom does like commission art and comics, which is just not super high demand. And I mean, it kind of is, but it's also like it requires a ton of work and doesn't pay that well, just because there's not a lot of people reading and consuming art like there were in the Renaissance at such a scale, especially with the government defunded in a lot of ways now. And then what do I get paid? So I'm working at a company called StartGG as an intern at $32 an hour, and that's full time, so like 40 hours a week. Typically, you can calculate your yearly salary when you're doing full time by doubling it and then multiplying by 1,000. So this would be 65,000 a year. Enough for me to live on, for sure. That's a great salary. I guess this is like total amount of credit. I'm very into credit cards, so I have just to farm like benefits in cash. I don't know, this is visible. Maybe I can scroll so it's, I don't know, whatever. You'll just have to do the math yourselves on these last ones. But yeah, I have about 7,500. I just got another credit card, so it should, which I think will actually double or more that amount. That doesn't really matter though, because I never spend money I don't have. And then my other profit yearly, just from random investments and stuff, like I made a good amount of money off Figma IPO, and I invested in Rivian early, and I was speculating with some cryptocurrencies, but honestly, don't do that. That's just a very dumb move to make in your 20s, because I don't know, you're not an investor, you're not like an expert, you're just getting lucky if you're making money on it. And I think I got very lucky off a couple of things there, and I don't want to do it anymore. And then also, I guess generally financially, I have longer term savings from several like corporate internships I have. I have a bunch of, it's like 3 different 401ks through different things. So most of my money goes into long-term stuff. And yeah, I guess that's about it in terms of hard numbers. I'll think of more things as I go. But I also, when I was growing up for the longest time, like it didn't really occur to me how wealthy my family is and how well off we are. Because there were times when we had like basically nothing liquid in our bank account. We had like several $100s, you know, and it was like, are we going to be able to buy groceries? And that was just because we'd come back from like trips to weird places. My parents are like very travel oriented people that just go all over the world, even if it's like financially slightly unstable sometimes. And they also, like, a lot of the travel is because of academia, to like go to different conferences and do research in different places. They're both like kind of in Greek, ancient Greek and Latin and classics fields, which is unusual, but it leads to a lot of traveling. But yeah, so I for the longest time like knew about, you know, six-figure salary, like you're an engineer, you're making so much money. And that's kind of what I imagined rich was. But I'm now seeing like I have so much privilege in like the amount of like culture and stuff I was exposed to by doing all this traveling. And my parents just like are all their investments are not like typical like liquid cash. Like they hold a bunch of degrees, which are, I don't know, those are investments you don't really see on the surface, but that amount of knowledge is just so huge. I don't know, like it's really hard to quantify. And whenever I heard before people say like, oh, there's different kinds of wealth, you know, there's cash and then there's culture and money smarts and all that stuff. I didn't really buy it, but I'm now seeing like the fact that I'm able to make YouTube videos that make like my rent money, at least for this month, and just like do ridiculous things with keyboards like this. And the other day, I was downtown with some of my friends. We were just out in the town, and I saw like Burlington has like a pretty bad homeless problem. I just saw someone like straight up inject heroin into like they were basically naked too. It was like one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen. But it just kind of strikes me every day seeing these people, like the privilege is, the money I have isn't insane, the money my family has, and also my parents are getting divorced, which is a whole other financial strain, but that's completely irrelevant. That's their problem, whatever. And kind of, I don't know, I don't want to get heavily into that. But it's like, we're not like super loaded, you know? The loadedness comes in just like the education they gave me growing up and like all they read to me and all the knowledge they have from all these degrees and traveling all over the place and like all this wisdom and stuff. And like I play the Irish fiddle as well. And like I do all this like super like cross-country skiing and like, I don't know, just what people would consider white privilege sports. Also, a lot of my friends do things like sailing and rowing and like biathlon, and it's like it's all that stuff is awesome, but like when you're seeing people just like shooting up heroin and smoking meth all over this city, it just makes me feel like so conscious of that I have this opportunities to like go online and talk about my imaginary six-figure job. You know, it's just like so sad, and I didn't realize that wealth is so also tied up in like your potential and your knowledge and stuff like that. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. But there's also, I guess, a couple of other things to consider in wealth. Like you can have your personal wealth, but also I'd consider your family's wealth a big part of your wealth, because they support you. And most people's parents, at least if you're ending up as a software engineer and you're watching a channel like this, I don't know, there's a whole spectrum of people at all different levels in finances, but a lot of people's parents can kind of support them in college or whatever, or if they live with their parents, or yeah, you're somehow financially dependent on your parents or grandparents, which I'm not really anymore, to be honest, but yeah, they totally help me out with all kinds of things. And my college is also, I get tuition remission because my parents or my dad is a professor, so I just don't pay tuition. But it's still ridiculously expensive because they get around that by just making a bunch of comprehensive fees that don't count as tuition. So it's basically a half-off discount, which is such bullshit and bureaucracy. But who am I complaining? You know, like I have incredible privilege that no one else. Well, I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't want to sound like all fuck. It's such like a difficult. What is it called? Like working class guilt. You know, like that's just such a huge privilege. But anyway, I was also saying like, so there's family wealth like on both sides of my family, not like economist, lawyer kind of wealth. It's like both. My one grandfather was like a marine biologist, and the other is like a painter, and my grandmother was a weaver, and the other side of my family is like social workers. It's not wealth like big investment wealth. It's like had any stable job during the golden years of the economy wealth, like pretty typical. And then also like part of my college is paid for by a really weird anomaly where my uncle was, or great uncle, I'm not really sure, on my dad's side of the family was like murdered by his wife over an insurance policy. Like he was killed on the last day of the coverage, and it was proven in court that she did it for the money. So that policy payout, which was pretty high, went to just college funds for a lot of the kids in our family and like our cousins and stuff, which is like terrible, but also very lucky for us. And I don't know, it's like such a weird thing to grapple with because there's just so many levels and it's kind of inherently unfair. But I don't know. I would rather I would rather have all the like reading my parents did to me and all their degrees and all the travel and all the like weird art stuff I was exposed to than like 10 times the amount of money, because I don't know. I can see people kind of end up in miserable places, but everyone kind of picks their own path, and it really does come down to you. And you can end up anywhere provided you have the knowledge and put in the work. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to. There's no conclusion to this video. There's no like piece of advice. This is just what my finances are. I don't know. Compare them if you want to. Maybe you learned something about Vermont's tax rates or some bullshit. I don't fucking know. All right, I'll see you next time.